This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. This week's episode is brought to you again by the Friends of the Magic Word, and I want to welcome our newest friend of the Magic Word, James DeMare. Thank you, Jim, very much for your patronage. I appreciate your donation for us to continue this podcast well into the future. And I also want to thank a few other people who, while I was at Abbott's Get-Together this past week, I had an opportunity to run into some folks who had given me some cash donations. So I want to thank Chuck Arkin and also to Gerald Costello. And while I was gone, I had another donation that had come in from Gene Protis. All of those have already been friends, but it's kind of like from time to time people just say, hey, it's time for me to re-up my subscription and to make another donation. And certainly that does help defray our costs. And I recommend, if you're interested in learning more about how that you can become a friend of the Magic Word, and if you want to give a one-time donation or an ongoing donation like these gentlemen have, or if you want to give a pledge from month to month, you can do that also for no more than a cup of a nice cup of coffee each month, or perhaps a nice single malt scotch. It doesn't cost all that much to enjoy these podcasts and know that you have helped support us in a special way. So if you'll just go to themagicwordpodcast.com, there you'll see where you can subscribe or become a friend of the Magic Word, that is, and you can find out more details about how to do that, and you'll find out why we need your support. This week, I want to take you to Branson, Missouri, where we are getting to visit with Garry Carson backstage in his dressing room following one of his dinner shows. And Garry and Janine Carson have started their show in Branson in 2020. And what's amazing is they had won not only the best new show, but also the best dinner show. And this is an afternoon, late or early dinner show, I should say, which after the dinner is over, they do their show on stage. And after the stage show is over, you really kind of still have time to even catch another show. There are a lot of variety shows in and around the Branson area, and a few magic shows there that are well worth seeing. So if you are looking for some illusion shows, and there are a few of them, it seems like, that are touring nowadays because of the cost. Just it's difficult to tour with a show and having dancers and all of your illusions and having to worry about trucks and unions and loading in and out of all of these different venues. You don't see a lot of touring shows, so you almost have to go to where the shows are. In this particular case, go to Branson, and there are some shows there to see. And this is one of them that I would recommend. This is not intended to be a commercial for his show. I'm just saying I enjoyed having an opportunity to catch up with a friend who I had first met at the Magic Island when we worked together here in Houston, Texas. And so I thought it'd be great to chat and let you know a little bit about his background and how he kind of got to where he is by traveling the high seas on cruise ships, as well as, I think, what did he say, 8,000 performances in Las Vegas, then ending up in Branson then right now. So anyhow, I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation we have this week with Garry Carson here on The Magic Word. Today we're doing something very special. We are actually in Branson, Missouri at the Branson Central Theater, and we are here with Garry Carson and Janine, his wife, but Janine has just finished. She's gone to pick up the child, I guess, their 3-year-old. And so Garry and I are back in the dressing room. He's just kind of unwinding after a fantastic show here in Branson. So welcome. Hello, Garry.
Well, thank you. Thanks for all coming out and checking out the show.
You bet. Good to reconnect after all these years.
Wow.
Now, when was the first time when you started working the Magic Island back in Houston? When we first met? That must have been in the 80s, 90s?
It would be in the late 90s.
Okay, late 90s?
96, 97.
Had you been working at Caesar's Magic Kingdom for a while? Were you involved with that or
no?
No,
I did the Wizard Secrets at the MGM, where you
Okay.
did the 12 shows a day routine.
Because on the thing you were showing to begin with, what was it, like 8,000 shows or something?
Yeah,
just crazy.
Did a little over almost 8,300 shows in the almost 2.5 years. So,
In 2.5 years. So how many shows a day, a week? And
it was 12 shows a day. It was 3 different casts, and each cast did 12 shows. So it was 36 shows of the Wizard in the Wizard Secrets Emerald City there at the MGM.
And did you change out your illusions or just do one of the same things over and over every day?
Same thing over and over. It just really fine-tuned it, I guess, by the time we got done. But it just, I mean, with the crowd just changing out and doing the audience stuff, it just made you really sharp on what we were doing and made it solid. So it was fun.
I mean, you get your timing done. And how much time did you have? Like 12 minutes, or what was your part of the show?
I think the whole thing was like a little over almost 14 minutes maybe, and then we only had 5 minutes in between resetting and reloading everybody back in there before we did it again. We did 3 in an hour.
3 in an hour. Okay.
Yeah, so we'd do 2 hours. We'd do 6 in a row, 2-hour break, and then come back and did 6 more.
Were they resetting the audience and the tables and everything, or what?
It was it was 3 rows completely surrounding the little 10-foot diameter stage. Yeah. So the people came in one side and went out the other, and then people were lined up already at the other door. So to be able to do that 5-minute reset, basically, crew was resetting as we were performing. So you're kind of putting things right back where they needed to be as much as possible.
Right.
So afterwards, you're almost set, other than the ticket takers came in and cleaned up or whatever, anybody dropped anything. But I was always picking up the poker chips. But
when you were working in Vegas, was your long-term goal to work on cruises, or what? I mean, what at that point in the 90s, what did you want to do? Was that when had you reached it? It's kind of like, I'm here, I want to do this rest of my life, or?
No, I guess, I mean, MGM opened in end of 93. So being hired to do that, it was a 6-month contract. So I was only 25. So to me, being 25 is basically, going to leave Colorado, go do 6 months, work the MGM, and say that I worked the world's largest hotel and casino, and put it on my resume and go back to Colorado and figure out what's next.
And do whatever.
Yeah. So it was just, I really didn't have any goal, but after getting to Vegas and doing that, and there was an option to extend, so it was like extend for 3 months, and they just kept extending it 3 months. And I was like, I liked being here. So I started analyzing what would keep me in Vegas is what I was doing. But I mean, my first advice, I was 17. It was between my 11th and 12th grade summer break. I had took a trip out to Vegas by myself. I had a week there. Somebody had a magic shop. I don't even remember what, but told me about Joseph Gabriel working at the Flamingo doing his Dove act. Right. And they put me in contact with him backstage, and I talked to him for a little bit, and told him who I was, and he knew I was a high school kid. And he gave me the best advice. He said, after the show, he got me in for free. And then he had me meet him at a door at the inn. And I came out, and he'd spent maybe 45 minutes talking to the 17-year-old. Wow. And basically my advice was, you can't come to Vegas to expect to work Vegas. You need to already be working, have something that somebody in Vegas wanted you for. So I thought of that. So I went back to Colorado. I was like, okay, what's going to keep me busy and doing what I enjoy, but hopefully get somebody to look at me and want to hire me, kind of thing. So I just kept busy in Colorado and surrounding states. And I just happened to, through a very dear friend, Max Hapner. I don't know if you know
Max. Yeah.
Max Hapner. And he passed me over to John Mooring, who produced it with Patrick there for.
Was that Abracadabra?
It was a Showtech. It was Showtech was the name of the production company.
Oh, okay.
But it was out of Dallas, I think it was.
Yep, because he lived in Dallas. Yeah. Texas
so,
trickster.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So just one person led me to the next person, and I flew out to see John, and he hired me on the spot. And I'd come back home, and I had 1 week to pack up my belongings to move there for 6 months. And so it was just going off of what Joseph said. You just got to be good enough for somebody to see you, to want you. And because I didn't think I was just going to go to Vegas and work there. Right. I just knew I needed to be busy, be good at what I do, and get somebody to
Good advice, but do you think that still holds today? Because things change. But obviously, back in the 90s, that was before four-walling.
Exactly. That's people. The hotels paid to produce a show and brought you in. That's way gone. Yeah. So, now it's completely different. Yeah, definitely. Now you just
so now anybody can go out there with enough money.
Exactly.
And have their own show, basically.
Yep.
So they're not bringing you out, and so you can bring the biggest package you want and say, "Here's what I can do for you." They say, "I don't care. How much can you pay us for the room?"
Exactly.
Yep. So, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who would be doing that now?
I mean, I would say the advice would be to not just think Vegas is the best place to be all the time. I mean,
good point.
It's just there's live entertainment everywhere.
Well, like right here in Branson.
Exactly. So, and I wasn't really planning to come out of here. It just happened. But it was actually, I planned and already had it all set up, ready to come here prior to even COVID. And then being out here, thank goodness. I mean, Caesars Entertainment wanted me there in Vegas, and every time I had a meeting with them, they kept promising me the world. The world kept getting smaller.
Yeah.
And finally, I just said, you know what? I have a family. I want to get off the cruise ships. I just said we have a little daughter, and I said, but we got to figure out something. And I was actually about ready to sign a deal in Pigeon Forge, and then things kind of went a little south there. And I was like, okay, what else? And I just popped over here. So
we got Atlantic City and a few other places where people can go. I mean, those are the two major places, I would think, be Atlantic City and maybe Reno and Vegas, and then you got Branson. So there are a few other places, which is another thing having to do with illusionists, because I love to talk with people like you, because there are so few illusionists. I mean, everybody has a deck of cards, and everybody's a close-up guy, it seems like, or wanting to do a comedy show or be next Mac King or something, But in your case, it sounded like your goal was to be an illusionist, and you did it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I knew from a little kid, because my dad helped me. My dad built custom homes for a living.
Oh, okay.
So as a kid, I kept designing. I was 12 years old. Dad, can I build this box? And the boxes just kept getting bigger. So by the time I graduated from high school, I had a full illusion show built and paid for with the help of my dad and my parents' support. So
yeah.
So that was very helpful.
Well, I would think so then too, and also to be invaluable for repairing some of the things that get broken.
Exactly. And I've designed and built stuff for other magicians as well. So that's been very nice to fall back on too. So
yeah, because I've heard from some people who have done a lot of illusions and built some illusions and worked a lot on ships, like Doug Anderson, and working in theme parks and places that he wrote the book about, in which you're going to be having to have solid hardware. You just can't have something that looks nice you can put in your office and say there's a cool looking prop. You got to have something that can be a workhorse and work over and over.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So being able to repair that, and with your background, that'd be pretty helpful then too. But where would you work in Colorado as far as illusion shows? I mean, of course, right now Joe Given's got his theater out there, the Theater Dreams. Him and Carol Massey Given is great, but there are a few and far apart.
Well, I mean, that's when I grew up. I mean, right out of high school, I put together, as a kid growing up, I remember seeing magicians at my elementary school and stuff like that, school assemblies. But by the time I graduated, that stuff was long gone too.
Sure.
Everything had to be educational. So then I had some DARE officers asking me, hey, can you just do a thing at the graduation where, you just talk about making the right decisions and so on and doing what you enjoy. It's like, that'd be fun. I did a couple of those, little 10-minute bits during their graduation ceremonies, and it took off. But all these officers started calling me, wanting me to do this 10-minute bit. It's like, I ain't got time to travel around doing all these 10-minute bits at, 40 schools. And so I'm thinking, why can't I put together an educational program? So I put together an educational program for the schools called Knowing the Magic Words. And it was like, yes to reading.
I like the title.
I can to self-esteem, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so then a 45-minute show?
It was 40, I think it was 42, the school assembly, time frame, whatever.
Sure.
But so I did it, and then I'm like looking at it, it's like, well, I need it. I'm working at Zizo's Magic Shop there in Colorado,
Zizo's,
and I'm just doing birthday parties and doing all that stuff, and I'm 18, so I'm thinking, how can I take off to really market this and have the money to do a mailing back then? You did mailings of schools and stuff. So I turned around and had my brochure. I went around to all local businesses that knew me in Fountain, where I grew up. They all gave me a little bit of money to put their names on the back of my brochures because they knew I was going to do all the schools in the area.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and they paid me to advertise. Basically, that was the money I needed to take off for a couple of weeks and not really do anything besides stay at home and work the phones and sell out, have these brochures printed.
Yeah.
I booked all these schools very quickly because they got the letters from the DARE officers, what I was doing. They liked the whole message behind it. Next thing you know, I had all these schools to where the next year, all the schools wanted it again, plus all the other schools that heard about it. So I had to I didn't have two of everything. So I had to put two different shows together. And I hired a friend to drive to another school because I was doing 3 shows before noon and then doing one in the afternoon sometimes too. So I was doing 15 to 17 shows Monday through Friday, all before 3 p.m.
And not all at the same place. You're having
exactly. So I had to hire a friend. He went and drove, set up stuff, and then we just back and forth. We were just all over the place.
Right.
So I would drive the next spot. He would take the next car, drive the next show to the next place, and I would stay there. And so we just kept switching cars, and I did that for 3 years, and it just kept me busy. And then I thought I was going to do a 4th year when. Then Max Abner led me over to, John Mooring and went to Vegas instead. So
Did you have the same name, or did you have a brand for the company that you and the other guy did? In other words, did he go out also? Did you go under your name as Garry Carson? The other guy was Garry Carson, or also? Or
actually, the other person just set up and packed. I did the show.
You went. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
So,
misunderstood.
No,
what
yeah.
you were
So
saying.
I would go to the show. I'd get there, give him the keys. He'd take the van and go to another
Set up
school
the next one.
and set up the next one. And I would
he'd
drive
come back
there
and tear down while you were.
I would kind of pack up as we go,
bit,
and then he would go set up and kind of rearrange things for me again. So it was just we were switching cars and setting up back and forth.
What about assistants? Did you have assistants at the time?
The first year I did not. And then the second year I did, because then the messages, I had 2 illusions in the show. And I tried to, the whole show wasn't a lecture because I didn't want the kids to be bored with it, but I had some strong effects that had a message. For example, was like making the right decisions, even though with pure pressure. And I had a thin sawing model. And so basically I tell the kids, my friend here, we're really good friends. I try to make sure she makes the right decisions, but it's like, I was like, here, come and get in the box. And she's like, I don't think that looks safe. And it's like, oh no, trust me. She gets in the box, and then I cut her in half. It's like she trusted me. Then you never know what's going to happen.
Yes.
So then you put her back together, so on. And then the same with we ended the show one year with the Metamorphosis, and the whole concept was like, you might think at the very end of this whole thing that it's my life, I could do what I want or whatever. I said, but the decisions you make sometimes affect people around you that love and care about you. You might think, I don't care about this. I'm just going to, do drugs. I'm just going to don't care about school. I'm just going to, just lounge around on the couch.
Live this life, yeah.
Yeah. So the concept was like, my friend here, I care about her. But let's say, hey, she doesn't care about her life. We might as well just lock her up. So I put her in the sub trunk, and I say, but you know what? I really care about her. So I'm going to show you how fast it affects people around you. So then I would we do the Metamorphosis, boom, boom, and we switch places, and they'd let me out. So I just showed them, that. So the strong effects just really had an impact between what I was trying to say. So it really,
kind of like a trade show from the standpoint that you had a message that you were trying to deliver
exactly.
and get the people to remember what it was that you were saying there with that. So you would have the assistant also that travel with you then to the next show, and you're kind of getting around for all those. And then you started doing things outside of the Denver area.
Yeah. Then after the first year, it was just kind of my 3 different little towns together, and that was busy. So then that expanded to Colorado Springs and Denver. Yeah. And then the 3rd and 4th year, it was out of state. I was doing Albuquerque. I was just doing the surrounding states. Right. And I thought I was going to be doing it again. And in between doing that was school season. Summer season, you talk about doing illusionists. I was doing my show, illusion show, 5 shows a day, 6 days a week at the Royal Gorge Bridge down there. Oh, yeah. And it was a tourist trap down there in Canyon City. So I did that, for 3 summers. And I got the production company out of a different production company out of Texas that, they produced the show, and I had to say in the illusions with the choreographer, and if I fulfilled my contract, I got to keep all the illusions. So I made each year, I produced a different show with different stuff. So after 3 years, I got myself, 6 illusions. I got 18 illusions in that, and that was on top of my salary. So that's
good. But where do you warehouse all that stuff?
That's the thing is, it's funny you hear people that just have all this stuff, and they just like, you got to remember, you got to find a place to put it. So when I was in high school, I had these metal sheds. I had these metal sheds in my dad's backyard, and now I've got a large warehouse in Vegas. So but we've got, I got like almost 50 different illusions that are large.
Have you ever seen, or did you ever see inside of Andre Cole's illusion warehouses? Because it's several. Because he kept all this stuff and kept putting them higher and higher because he'd have new stuff, but he kept all of his electronic tubes from old radios.
He kept everything.
Everything. Yeah, all of his old PR material. Yeah. Do you keep all of your stuff as well, or do you?
I have got quite a bit. I've sold a lot too over the years, because what I was doing also, I was kind of as a hobby, is if somebody was kind of going out of business, I'd go in and buy their whole show, keep the pieces I wanted, resell everything on Magic Auction or wherever I can, and usually make more money than what I invested in.
Remember years ago, Cramian used to build a show, then sell the show, and then build it, then he would sell it.
Sure did.
Did you ever buy? That was probably before you started getting into.
Well, no, because I started doing a lot of magic trading after knowing Max Hapner. Several as Christian Miller, several magicians in Colorado that we all just rotated the magic between us. It seemed like, hey, I got that, I'll trade you this or that, and stuff like that. But so then I started doing that. Just so I bought a bunch of stuff when Melinda was kind of giving it up. I bought a bunch of stuff there. Carl Beck, a bunch of his stuff. I think I bought almost all his stuff actually, and I just did that. I just kind of kept and sold and reinvented
When you
it.
bought something, you would buy the collection, but did you rehearse all the stuff and decide, I think I like this, but I'm going to keep this and sell the other? Or did you have certain things in mind? That
I already
you
knew
wanted
what I
as part of
liked.
their collection?
I already knew their collection, but a lot of people just wanted to sell the whole thing, especially if they're
Yeah.
going to get rid of it. They didn't want to part it out because
Right.
they want to get rid of the strong stuff and stuck with the weaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just do that. And I mean, sometimes I was storing stuff for quite a while before I moved it. But then as soon as I got my investment out, then I would get rid of stuff real quickly. Just drop the price and help somebody else out with it.
But during that time, did you have some ideas? I mean, I don't know, Gary, but like with me, I will sleep on something. I bought my sub trunk from George Kimmery. I didn't perform it for 2 years until I felt like I had the right music for that. It was something, I mean, we'd rehearsed it, I had it down, but I just didn't feel comfortable because I didn't have the right music.
Exactly.
So there
Yeah,
are things which you got to find the right thing for it. So are you kind of the same way?
Same way. Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's like stuff I always want to either have built or whatever, but I just it's like, well, I don't want to spend the money yet because I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet.
Right.
But, there's several things. There's probably, I don't know, half a dozen things I got now in my warehouse that I would love to have, but I just haven't done it yet. You just don't know really what to do with it.
Yeah.
And then once in a while we'll bring there's a couple of things we've been toying with here and this show and changing out. And it's like, I videotaped it a few times. Like, okay, we play with the audience and you
kind of see what their reactions
yeah,
be.
exactly. And this venue is really difficult to do any bigger stuff anyway, but we're seeming to be pulling some stuff off.
Well, that was one of the things I remember, again, going back to Magic Island that we talked about at the beginning, that Scott Hollingsworth used to let us keep some things in to try to work. And after about the third, fourth, or fifth show, it's like, if that's not working, you might want to reconsider taking that out, revising the pattern, your choreography, whatever.
Scott was amazing as, just, helping, I think, the younger talent out. And I mean, I was young too when I started working there. And
yeah.
And with I guess the experience with the MGM of doing so many shows in a day, and he brought me at the time, it was Kelsey Cara, my wife, and we were doing a lot of shows. So he would always brought us in for a Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, where we had to do 5 shows those on the weekends. I mean, we were just
you were workhorses.
We were kicking out a lot of shows, and so it was crazy. So.
Yeah. And I also want to go back to your goals when you're working in Vegas. I often will talk on this podcast about setting goals and having a 3-year, 5-year, 10, 15, 20-year plan. And you were kind of kicking butt very early in your career in reaching a goal that some people had as a life achievement, and you were already there in your early 20s, like you said, in working Vegas. And so did you keep having goals, or did things keep happening? Like you were saying with Max Hapner, that changed to John Mooring, and they put you in touch with this. And I mean, did things kind of line up like dominoes for you, or did you have that as a plan? This is where I want to go.
I mean, I guess after I got to Vegas, again, the first 6-month contract, I didn't really how it works. I was 25. I figured 6 months I was going back home. I didn't know you can extend or anything like that.
Yeah.
So after getting to Vegas and realizing the opportunities there, I was thinking, okay, what's going to keep me here? So I did realize, like, I can't be doing, to me, I kept analyzing the illusions I was doing. It's like, okay, I think I need to sort out some of the illusions I don't think would ever be strong here. So I was, pawning off, Hindu basket and stuff like that. I just wasn't comfortable with. So I was going through my collection, really trying to hone in like the show itself, and then just trying to figure out, is there anywhere in town that would like me or want to keep me?
Yeah.
And then when I knew MGM was finally coming to a close, it still was kind of iffy. But so I was doing Wizards at, down there in Universal City, and, Castle. I was doing some tours with the, It's Magic, doing those theaters. And I started jumping on cruise ships. So I didn't want to do one of anything.
Was Ron Wilson booking you by chance back then? Did he book any of yours? I know Ron Wilson at the Castle was booking a lot of cruise ship guys.
No, that was still through Don Casino.
Okay,
I've always from day one was with them. So, yeah. And then, so just kind of kept it option, but I like, the cruise ships wanted me full time. And I just knew that if I disappeared out there, I disappear from everywhere. And I just did not want to do
radar.
That. Exactly. Yeah. And I really just kept a lot of irons in the fire. And then I just started doing then I was just trying to analyzing what I could do with my off time. From like the summer was the cruise ships, and usually around Thanksgiving to Christmas time frame. So then I just started looking back at my fundraising stuff. I remember enjoy doing the shows I was doing with the schools and that. And so my younger brother is a 9-time cancer survivor.
Wow.
And he just now been diagnosed with Parkinson. So he's had 24 years of just it's craziness. It just, I mean, they've written papers about him, everything else, a lot of medical papers and things, but he's alive for some reason here. So
younger brother.
My younger brother.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so I've been around that for a lot. So we started after the MGM closed, I started touring and doing colleges and corporate stuff. But I had 8 people. I mean, I had the sound guy, the trucks, the driver, I had all that stuff. But so I was having to go, let's say, from Vegas over to Denver to do a show, and then the next big corporate gig is in Chicago, but now it's 5 days later. Well, it was too expensive to drive every way back to Vegas to turn around and drive all the way to Chicago. By the time I got there, it was basically turning around. So I'm thinking, I still got to feed everybody, house everybody, and do all that.
Right.
So I started putting together, going out the concept with my school shows, is getting corporate sponsors to pay for expenses. And that's where I came up with my fundraising tour stuff. I started looking at big cities in between point A and point B, trying to offer a free show to do a fundraiser. And all they need to do is try to get some hotels donated, get some, any gift cards from the restaurants donated so I could help feed and pay. And then just let me, they do the show for free. They would sell tickets, raise money for their charity event. And I guess I pushed the products to try to, help cover my expenses. Yeah. Well, after I did that a few times, by the time I got home after a college tour, my answer machine at the time was full of people going, how do we, they
would be part of it.
Like, how can we be part of your free fundraising tour? I'm thinking, I don't have a free fundraising tour, So I'm thinking, how can I help? I kept hearing these sad stories of how they lost their funding for this or that.
Right.
So then I was just like, how can I get more corporate sponsors and go out and do that? Well, I did that for 14 years.
And you personally were making the phone calls to all
personally,
these companies.
all that, and it was kind of off the Cramian stuff that everything I learned from Max Habner, Cramian, all the different people, I put it all together and was I got to say, very successful with it because it kept me busy. It was about 7 months out of the year was doing fundraising. I offered up 100 free shows every year for 14 years.
How did that differ from a phone room show?
Well, I didn't have to do the phone rooms. It's just because since I offered the show for free to the nonprofit, they did the work where they made sure everybody knew about the tickets and sold the tickets.
So they sold the tickets.
They sold the tickets. They kept 100% of it. My job was going out getting corporate sponsors
that would pay for
your
my fees and all
my fee for every show. I got paid
expenses.
for every show.
Yeah. Okay.
So
did that vary? I mean, sometimes you make $2,000 or $25,000. I mean, it could vary a lot. Or did you have like a set?
I
knew what your expenses.
I knew what my expenses were. Let's put it this way: I knew what I wanted for the year.
Okay.
So I made sure I went out and got enough sponsors to cover my expenses for the year.
Anything over that would be gravy.
Yeah, and it was at the beginning I was like, okay, I got 6 sponsors. Like, okay, I made a budget.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, and next year I needed 12 to make my my budget.
Right.
So I usually it was sometimes got tougher to get the budget depending on the year, but I never really went more than my budget. After I knew I made X amount of dollars, I was happy with that because I knew I did 100 shows and made good money for it. So
at the time of trying to find the kind of sponsors, what type of sponsors were they? Were they mainly consumer products type of thing, or were they building?
Well, since I was doing a family show and promoting it for the charities, I got Lego toys. I was looking for kid-friendly family kites and stuff like that. So I've had that. Pepsi was one of my sponsors.
Wow, that's pretty big. How about Kellogg's? I mean, that would have been something big.
Some of them were tough to really do, but I had some really good sponsors over the years. Yeah. And then like Lego's toys, we got to make a prod. Actually, we did that little levitating car, made the car
out of
Legos, so that was kind of cool. So
yeah. Well, yeah, if you can incorporate something that has to do with the product, again, it goes back to a trade show kind
exactly.
of thing.
And that's what I did. It was like they got a big PR thing in the show with that. So
did you work trade shows very much then also with Big Illusions?
No,
when you were saying corporate shows, I wondered if they were trade shows, but they're really more like after dinner kinds of things.
Exactly. I tried. I just never. It was hard to get. I never was into the work in the conference, trying to get people to stop, get their attention, perform, and then turn them over to the salespeople.
Exactly.
I like doing the big party thing that they're celebrating at the end of the week with all the people, and then I just do a big show at the end. I love doing that. That was my favorite thing. So.
Well, that's the easy. I say it's easy because everyone's happy. It's the end. They're finished with all this, and it's kind of the time when they're saying goodbye, and everybody has been fulfilled.
Exactly.
And they're happy. Yeah. And also, if there are awards given out or prizes or something for whatever they've accomplished, for the year, that's the night. So everybody's going to stick around for the show.
Exactly.
So they're they're in that yes mood.
Right. Yep. Right. So
at the time. And so then you transition, I guess, then over on cruise ships. we'll talk about cruises, but I wanted to ask. I was talking to Jamie Salinas, our buddy back in Houston, and Jamie said, "Here's a good question you need to ask Garry," and that has to do with children going on cruises. And so you've got a 3-year-old. Were you on the cruise or out cruising whenever when Janine got pregnant, or you decided, hey, we don't want to raise a child on sea, and so we're going to go on land, or?
We were doing ships. Janine really loved ships. It was, to me, I was done with ships. But when Janine and I met, and we met actually on a cruise ship doing a Hawaii cruise, I was bouncing back and forth, and it was an off-season cruise where it wasn't families. It was just an older clientele going from California over to Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So all the people I was doing my illusion show and comedy show, and then I would quickly just do my 2 shows within 3 days, 4 days, get to Hawaii. I'd fly back. I didn't want to be on there the whole time. Yeah. So I was doing that, and the crew was like, hey, do you know that showgirl from Vegas? I go, what? They go, there's a showgirl cruising from Vegas. I'm kind of looking around thinking, okay, it's a retired showgirl from Vegas, you know? Yeah. And then they're asking me if I know her. I was like, I don't know all the showgirls in Vegas. The Rat Pack I know. I was like, I don't know all the showgirls either. So anyway, I did my comedy show first. I'm doing a meet and greet at the end, and it's a big group of people, and they're like, hey, great show. I looked up, and there's this, 5'8" blonde, and I go, young, and I'm like, and showgirl from Vegas? She goes, how do you know? And then she kind of started blaming her mom. She was on a girls trip with her grandma and mom and everybody. And I was like, hey, I'm a magician, So anyway, I was busy. So they kind of moved on. I'm thinking, well, somebody from Vegas I could, have, a coffee or lunch with. And so I thought, well, not, exactly. And so I came back through, I usually after my show, I kind of, hibernate and go grab a bite. But I came out trying to find her. People say I was stalking her. But anyway, I found her.
Some say stalking. I know. I say finding.
I know. So I found her. And then people were just kind of like, so we started talking, and I asked her for a phone number, and she's like, well, I don't have a cell phone. I'm thinking, well, that was a heck of a letdown.
Yeah. Let me give you one.
But, yeah, I know, exactly. So then she was like, well, I mean, I lost my phone right before the cruise. I said, but you'll still have the same number, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's okay. I said, so we switched numbers, and we were just, between FaceTime and everything else, that real technology really brought us close together.
Interesting.
So when we were apart for almost 3 weeks, just talking that way, at least when we finally got together, it didn't feel like we were new to each other, because we got to see each other on the FaceTime and stuff, and goof around and have fun. So it was a lot easier, because I was basically flying in and flying out. I was just I was kind of on this cruise ship. I should have been on the ship staying overnight in a hotel in California. Instead, I was quickly making a trip over to Vegas, see her, and fly back to catch my ship. And they didn't know that. I was thinking, I hope the plane doesn't ever, cancel on me. Or it was like,
that's
I'd be in trouble.
Miss a flight or something. Yeah. And you left your illusions, everything, I guess, there in Hawaii.
Did. Yeah. I left illusions on the ship. I did that for the year. I just did that and came back. So anyway, long story short, we met, and we weren't really see each other. And I was going to be doing the Alaska season. And I said, you know what? I got to train the couple dancers to do the show. And, do you want a job and see if we could really bond here? And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So then we decided to have a family, but I just knew from friends, I told her, I said, we have a family. I said, we cannot be doing cruises as much as we have. I said, because I don't want to raise the kid on the ship. I said, I don't mind bringing her, but it's very hard. The ships don't let you bring them,
Oh, they don't.
Well, some of them more did in the older days, but then some kids have burned some, rules, so they started eliminating the kids. And then by the time I had a kid, people were like, it was really tough to find out which lines were going to do it. So celebrity, they're the ones that really let us, stay on there. And that was great. So it was like, we had a baby, they had a play, baby pin for us and everything else. And so it was like, great. So she really got, turning 3 at the end of the month. She is brilliant. And everybody that knows kids, they're just like, wow, they just cannot believe she's 2 years old. She's just mind blowing. It's because she's just experienced so much, Sure. And she's my kid too.
So, but when did she leave from the ships to come here to Branson? Then how old was she, 2? Or
yeah, she. I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, when you came here, you've been here for 2 years, right?
Yeah. So when we, she's turning 3. This is 21, and 20 is 2. So she was just, 16 months old when we decided we were going to come here. Yeah. Because before she's 16 months old, she'd been on 42 planes. She's got passports tons of passport visas from around the world. So it was fun, but it was a lot of work. Yeah. And then knowing that I just wanted to stay off the ships, and I wanted to do ships when we wanted to do ships, not because we had to do ships. I didn't want to be doing it year round. I just wanted something more, just unpack and stay. Because we did the fundraising for 7 months, and then we do the ships. It was just a lot of hustle. And so with her,
But if you're just doing ships for a part-time, you can't leave the illusions there the whole time if you're not going to come back for 6 months, can you?
Well, I mean, I had enough stuff I could do that if they were allowed to do it, and I did that on Princess, and I did that a couple of times with Princess. So yeah,
I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, that's all right. So I mean, so that worked, and then so just with that, I just knew that we guess what it seemed like more contracts we were running into problems where they wanted us on the ship, they wanted us to leave our child with grandma, and I was like, well, no. I said, we're not like some of the crew where they leave their family for 10 months. I said, I'm not doing that. Right. I said, I'm not
missing those.
Exactly. I had so many people that have friends that have missed their kids' firsts. And he's like, I'm not missing her walking, talking, any of that.
Right.
And so I said, if she can't come with us, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
And so we did I think we went all the way down to Tahiti because my wife wanted to do the Tahiti. So we got grandma to watch for 8 days, but we missed her, and I just didn't want to do that again.
You realized after 8 days that's too long.
We're not doing that again. It was. We had fun, but it was nah.
But were you thinking though at the time still of having her stay with you until maybe she was 5 or 6, and then you can bring her back to land, then she can go to kindergarten and start school here? I mean, I understand they have school on ships, don't they?
Well, you can do homeschooling, and now with the internet and stuff like that, there's all kinds of online schooling where the teachers is on the computer. I mean, I've got some friends that did that. So there was options of doing the ships until she was ready to start school or preschool or something.
But that wasn't the choice you were.
It just kept getting. Well, it was getting hard, because at the time, Holland America would let you have your kids, but by the time we wanted to apply, just could not get them to agree to it. It's just like. It's like, all right, so we're going to find something else. So
yeah, and so that's when you actively started looking for something on land, perhaps like you assume Vegas and
because I mean we want to go back to Vegas. Our main goal was to find something, and then when Vegas meetings on land, and then when the meetings started getting just not really okay with me, I just didn't trust Vegas as in what I wanted, and so we
as far as like bringing up a child, or for you personally?
No, just work, because like I said, we had some meetings and people were saying, hey, yeah, we'll give you this, that, but they just weren't. The promises looked like they were going to follow through. So I was like, you know what, let's look for something else. And then, like I said, Pigeon Forge was going to come up, so we was going to go out there, and
that's a nice place.
Yeah, so then that fell out through at the last minute, so that was frustrating.
That's where Terry Evanswood is, I believe, isn't that right?
Exactly.
Big show out there then, too.
Yep.
I mean, there are room, obviously, for a lot of magicians, like there are here in Branson. There are several magicians then as well, and I guess Pigeon Forge and Reno, every place else. Vegas certainly.
Yeah, and that's you got South Carolina, because look at Charles Bach. I mean, there's several people all over. So there's just, I mean, South Carolina or even Pigeon Forge here in Branson. It's seasonal. I mean, really, it's things kind of start opening up in March, and then after New Year's, things close up for 2 months. So that's interesting.
But Christmas is huge out here. I mean, during December, isn't it? I mean, when people and they have big.
The most shows change out the music and costumes and some of the stage stuff, and we decorate a lot here and change a few things. Try to give it a Christmas feel for the families,
right.
and did really well.
And one of the things too that Branson is known for is appreciation to the military here.
It's
and
huge.
They have a lot of things.
The biggest thing for veterans is Branson. It's huge.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's just because of the location and just
all
the different
U.S.
Well, that, and I think
Belt?
I think maybe because in the older days, the artists that worked here had their own theaters. I think they all did stuff for the military and everybody just gave back and supported the military. And I think it just kind of grew more and just more into something. So there's just. And all the different, celebration stuff, it just seemed like this town really gave back to that and just kept growing and growing. So
is that why you started working with the Armed Forces Entertainment, the AFE, then? Was because of this, or you did that before?
Actually, I did somebody on a cruise ship saw me that was military, and he was in the Army, and he was in Alice Springs, Australia. And he talked to the people in charge of that, going, hey, can you contact them? It'd be great. He had some kind of pool over there where, regarding the entertainment for the troops. And so they contacted me and say, hey, we're, Armed Forces Entertainment. Are you able to do a show, here for this military? And it's in the middle of Australia. And I was like, sure. So, we donate our time, and they packed us up and went out there and did that for a quick turnaround trip. And they got great reviews on it. They wanted to know if we can do another one. So we did Alaska, and that was in the middle of December. That was interesting. They're doing cruises in the summer where it's light all day. It was interesting going there. It was dark all day. That was and cold. It was minus 30. That was brutal.
That was high for the day.
Oh my! I don't see how they were working. I mean, all the military uniforms, the gloves were the mittens that were big as my. Maybe the thing was just gigantic. Like,
so it's hard to applaud.
Just like plump, plump, plump. Yeah. And that's the thing is they started, since I was doing the bigger shows, is they were taking me and taking us to where the bases where the families were traveling with.
Of course. That makes sense.
So that was nice. Because I couldn't take my show and do anything where it's a hotspot military thing like comedians or stuff. So I was going to where there's theaters and stuff like that.
That's what I was going to ask you as far as the type of illusions that you would bring with you. I mean, they had to pack small, play big kind of things, but they're expecting illusionists, and so they want to see the girl sawed in half.
We brought some huge shows.
Like what would you bring?
Oh, everything you saw tonight.
Okay.
All that.
Wiggling, sawing.
Yeah, we showed up with 22 cases. I mean, it was, we did, suspended animation, modern art, just all the big cases. I mean, each thing, it was huge. We did like 14 illusions. And then we also had all the showgirls. They wanted a Vegas type show. And so we had 4 girls, and it was Janine and I, and dancing and all that stuff. So, and they had hired a production company that did all the lights and sound for us. And then they traveled from one venue to the other with us. And so.
Well, we were talking earlier also about different venues across the U.S. that might be available. Why it's still in the U.S.? I mean, there are obviously locations in Canada, even Australia, of course, as you'd mentioned, where there are casinos and they have big entertainment budgets, I would think, as well. Why stay in the U.S. when the world could be your oyster?
Well, I mean, I didn't just only look in the U.S. We did look at other places. In fact, we were going to do an Asian tour and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
like Franz did. I mean, Franz is found gold over there.
He's got it figured out.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's several other places, and I've done a lot of corporate stuff where we go to Japan or Hong Kong or whatever. I've done stuff all over the world, and so I know there's options out there, and I've done that where it's just one nighters or weekends or just 1 week kind of trip. But no, I've looked, and it just things I just kind of, when things come up first, I just I've learned this, not to hold off for something better, because you can pass one deal up and turn around and that deal, you go to the next deal and it doesn't work. It's hard to go back.
So take what you get as you get it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did. I always say grass is greener on the side. Wrong. It is not. So you might as well, you got work is being offered to you. Look at it and figure out if that's, if it's what you want. But I mean, I don't settle though. Let's don't say that, I don't give in. But like I said, with cruise ships, I was like, okay, I'll just pass up the ships. I get it offered to me, but it's like, nah.
Yeah, so those are just kind of as you want them. It's like
I mean, we're still now with now they're starting to get back to work because of the whole COVID thing. So and so I know now you can't bring any guests or anything at all. So but they told me to check back at the end of the year. So we'll check back because we have January and February off. So it's like it'd be nice to go somewhere warm and just hang out for 2 months on a
go to Australia.
Exactly. Yeah. But I want to make sure my daughter can come with us. So
now, what about foreign language countries? Well, you were saying, of course, working in Asian countries like Japan and elsewhere. And you have a lot of talking act, particularly between resets of illusions. Do you have a person who would be a translator when you do that?
I've done a couple things when I did corporate stuff where I did translating, but basically when I go out of the seas, basically I try to stick to mainly to the large illusions where it's all visual, with the illusions, the music, the dancing, that kind of stuff. But when I do the different countries and do the armed forces entertainment thing, then that's great because it's all US,
English.
It's all English.
Yeah.
So,
But it's just I was thinking, obviously, that's why I mentioned Canada or Australia, because they would have English, and so it wouldn't be a big problem. What about theme parks? I mean, would you ever go back and do theme parks? I mean, that's a pretty tough gig.
It is
for younger people.
Yeah, that's
trying
to me.
To get started.
Yeah, because because the budget is not as where I'm used to either. So it's just you kind of.
Well, that's true. The budget's not there. Yeah, but it is a good place to get for people who need flight time, who are young, who wanting to get into
I definitely
illusions.
recommend that, exactly.
Okay, so when you were talking earlier about advice, get to Vegas, that have a show. They may not book you for a show, but at least you have the confidence to know you are ready to go for cruises as well.
Exactly.
Because you have been doing these shows and kind of, again, getting the flight time. Speaking about cruises and going to Alaska, I understand that you were once chased by a moose.
Yeah,
what was that story?
Well, it was all week long. It's me and this comedian, Fred Cladd, very dear friend. So we kept going on different tours and stuff with Bob North. Was a illusion builder in Vegas at the time. So I kept bringing him on as a guest all the time for the summer in Alaska because he loved Alaska. Well, we're all doing these tours and stuff, and everybody keeps saying, "Hey, the comedian kept making jokes about, hey, did everybody see the moose? And everybody wants to see a moose when they're on their trip,
Yeah.
but he's making jokes. He was kind of making people mad. So at the end of everyone's getting back on the ship. It's at the end of the day where we're not rushed in Haines, Alaska to get back on the boat. And we're walking along, and all of a sudden he looks over and goes, there's a moose. I was like, yeah, look, there's a moose.
A real moose.
Well, there's a real moose. Well, we wanted to get a picture of it. And back then you just had digital cameras. So we're trying to get close to it. He's like, get a picture. I'm like, it looks like a horse from here, because it was a female moose.
Okay.
But he'd never tell anybody that. But anyway, it's a female moose. So we kept getting closer, and it kept moving and eating and moving. And we came around the corner, and we cornered it. Well, she was looking at us, and she started. Well, I told Fred's like, give me the camera and I'll take a picture. I was like, no, I've got the camera. You go over there and take it. I'll take a picture. So as soon as he turned his back on the moose, she was upset. She started digging in the ground, and she took off. So all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're running for our dear life.
She was chasing
you.
you.
Was chasing us. She came after us. So we went around this container, but we didn't realize she took off. We undercornered her. She took off. We're kind of running around, like figuring out where she's at or what happened. And all of a sudden, it's like, the moose took off, and somebody saw him, goes, whoa, I'm about ready to call the cops. And we're thinking, well, what, do we do something wrong? It's like, no, the moose can kill you. It's like, well, he saw that we cornered it, but we're trying to get that darn picture.
But it was just what that picture, but you didn't get the picture.
No, we didn't. But the thing is that we did a variety show at the end of the cruise, because we went back to this ship and talking about it. Everybody's like knowing that we got chased by this moose. So we thought during the variety show, the magician, the singer, and Fred, the comedian, would all do a little bit about it. Uh-huh. And then when Fred got to his spot being the closer of the show, and people were crying so hard, it was the funniest bit ever. So when he's like,
because it's true.
Yeah, it was true, but it was just he elaborated. It was so funny. So he's like, I wonder the next show. We tried it. I heard it, but it was not as funny for me. But watching the people, they were all crying. It was just the funniest thing. He's like, this has got to work on land. So and it did, because every time Fred was doing comedy clubs, and then I had all these. He'd do morning shows, advertising or the comedy club. Yeah. Well, all these DJs kept calling me leaving messages going, hey, we had Fred Clyde in here. Is this true about the da-da-da? So, because it was the funniest thing ever. So, yeah, it is still as a funny bit.
Because I've heard that bears are dangerous. They say if it's brown, lay down. If it's black, fight back. Somebody had given that advice.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So, did you ever see any bear while you were up there?
I saw bear all the time. Okay. I mean,
but they never chased you like the moose.
Well, I didn't chase it first.
You didn't want to go up and take a picture with a bear.
No.
So I didn't know the moose was actually that a moose can kill you, or it's
they
like
said they'll fight. You see like some of these videos where the deers, come over and just paw you with that. So,
but a moose,
I guess moose would they're huge.
Yeah,
those things are gigantic.
That's what I've heard about. I've been around kangaroos, and you don't want to get hit by one of those. I mean, it's like a mule kicking you.
I can imagine. I was around a bunch of kangaroos in Australia,
sure. Yep.
And up close they just. Yeah, and just seeing the cartoons, I'm thinking, I just don't want to get any closer.
I've had some pictures when I was in Australia with them, and I thought later, they must have been tranquilized or something. I don't know how they got used to people, instead of biting or, hitting us or whatever, it was like that. Well, what was one of your best experiences as far as traveling on cruises, or something that why you wanted to do it or would want to go back, or it was a lot of fun, a location that you've seen? I remember I was talking like one time with Charles Green III, and he was saying, boy, I loved going to Key West. It was just beautiful to watch a sunset, and being out there. Now, this could be someplace also that may be, Garry, your destination you love, where you may or may not have worked. But is there some place that you...
I guess because every place, even the port of Honduras, everything had something nice to offer or some experience. But I think what I enjoyed the most is I did a long tour on Silver Seas cruise ship, and being a smaller, intimate ship, we were in ports that some of the big ships couldn't
get in. Sure.
Yeah, and then what they did is they did a lot of overnights for their passengers. Mm-hmm. So they always were looking for guides and stuff, because the crew couldn't do it because there wasn't enough crew. They had to stay behind. Oh. So I was doing this several weeks. I was only going to do 5 weeks. It was started off in where do we start off? Oh, actually, it started off in New Zealand and Australia, and I was going to do 5 weeks. I realized it was going to Brunei and then Hong Kong and that, so I kept writing to my agent going, can I stay for 2 more weeks? So he kept extending me, and I said, we're going to India, and I just met an Indian magician, so we talked, and they took me all over. Yeah. So every time we overnighted, it was for like 3 or 4 or 5 days. Uh-huh. So we finally got to Egypt and do all that. So
the pyramids and all that.
Yeah. So I got to do all these tours and that. I mean, by the time I got done, I did the passengers paid for it. I mean, I did a couple $100,000 in tours, but I got to stay on the Sheraton on the Nile. Got to experience that whole thing there.
But what did you do? I mean, you weren't the host, were you? I mean, you didn't.
They just
giving them a guided tour.
No, they needed somebody on the bus to be a representative of the cruise line. So if something happened, so I was the eyes of if somebody got hurt, it's like, oh, I know what happened.
I saw what happened.
So what happened. So and
I
then also
trust them because that guy is part of the ship. He's on the crew. Yeah,
exactly. And so then and also I made sure if we left with 15 people, we came back with 15 people.
Yeah.
So I did that, but I got to go into the pyramids, got to ride camels, and so I got to do all that fun stuff. Got I got to go snowboarding down the sand dunes and stuff like that. So
cool.
It was just amazing.
Did you go on a safari or anything like that when you were in Africa? Or
I didn't spend. Always seemed to always fly in and have to get on a ship and leave Africa.
So that was one place you didn't get.
I didn't. The very tip of South Africa, I want to go so bad, but I've flown in there, and then I got to stay a little tiny island on the east coast there. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but that was amazing. But it's just so I've done some amazing stuff with the career, and I've seen the world many times over, and got paid to do it. I didn't have to.
Well, you sound kind of like Marvin Roy, who was talking about you don't have to be a millionaire to live like a millionaire. That's what you want to be as a magician. Where, I mean, you can make $1 million or more, certainly, but you don't have to worry about money necessarily because you are able to live like the passengers and others, and they treat you nice also.
Well, yeah, I mean,
you are the star.
You're eating you're the star. You're eating some fine food. I mean, you got somebody that makes your bed every day. I mean, you got your own gym. You got your own rooms. You got everything. You got your driver. You got your chef. I mean, it's right. Why not? So
yeah. So your long-term goal from here then is what? Or do you have like a 10 or 20
we decided to come here to do our show. I mean, last year was tough, but we got through it. But anyway, Janine and I, we love Vegas. So we want something in Vegas or something where we can travel and come back more frequently. But our goal was to come here, give it everything we got, try to make sure we're successful. But we said we'd do it 5 years, and after 5 years, we'll see what it goes into. And we're not really, we're kind of branding the name of our show Escape Reality, and not really with, it's us, definitely us, but it's like, well, maybe we can keep the show here and we move on and just keep the show here.
Keep the show. You can have someone else in the show called Escape Reality.
Escape Reality, exactly. So that's kind of what we're looking at. That's kind of what we're doing.
Because you still get a piece of that action then, right?
We'll produce a show and bring somebody in to be part of the show and go do something else. So
I like that. So again, because of the four-walling in Vegas, that's something you could do pretty much anytime you want.
Exactly. And I mean, I guess there's some offers on the table now. I'm just, it's like, we'll see. I mean, I never say never, I'm not saying I wouldn't go back. Maybe I don't do the full 5 years here. I don't know. Right. But
now watching your show today, that was what? Well, it seemed like about 90 minutes. Is that
we do 75 minutes.
75.
Because most people in town pitch it as a 2-hour show. But everybody does a 25-minute intermission, and I didn't want to. We're already doing the dinner stuff. People have been sitting there for the 45 minutes to an hour for that. Right. So I didn't want them to. They're already getting up and going to the bathroom before the show starts. So we don't need an intermission.
Right.
So I just do a solid 75 minutes. Keep them.
You lose the audience.
You do, and I don't want to because you're going to basically it's like having two shows. You got a beginning, middle, and end, then you got to start all over again.
Yeah, and bring it back.
Yeah, and do it in a shorter time frame.
That's good.
So I just I really hit them hard, and then that's when I say it's like, hey, you want to see one more? They're like, yeah. It's like, all right, come back, because you always want to leave them wanting more. So,
well, if you had a lot of stuff to sell and you really were pitching something for concessions, and you had maybe a piece of the concessions, or in addition to all the stuff you
I mean, we do well with the photographer takes pictures and sells, and then we sell our
that's
stuff.
That's an idea from the cruise ship. As soon as I saw that, I thought, that's direct from the cruise ship. When they get on, they're coming in, they're taking pictures, and your pictures will be as you're leaving. You can decide to buy them or not. I thought that was kind of a brilliant idea then too. So, and how many illusions actually were you doing? Because it seemed like there must have been 20 or 30 things.
There's,
boom, boom.
If you count the big stuff, and there's 14 illusions in the show, big stuff, and then there's all the filler between. So it's we had a couple more illusions, but it just my problem is I need to get my goal in setting the whole show and the time frame is here. I didn't want to compete with the 8 o'clock shows. People that have been here, they're very successful. Is if I'm competing with them and taking their time spots. I'm gonna. It's who are you gonna go for, them or them, or So I was like, if I do because I was gonna just do a show, so I don't want to do that. So it's like a dinner show, something different. People can have dinner and then see our show, but get out in time to go catch a 7:30 or 8 o'clock show.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. So we, like I said, we just get them in, get them served. And I didn't want to do a buffet either. So I was really against that. So we do that 3-course sit down dinner and just trying to make it more intimate. We get a lot of people that do date night that come out. So, you can dress up or you can dress down and just be comfortable.
Right.
So.
And it's 6 nights a week that you're
Correct.
going to
Yeah. Monday through Saturday.
I think that is a really good idea. Years ago, David Sandy had a theater out here, and he had like a morning show, like a breakfast show, and then he had an Elvis impersonator, I think, in the afternoon, and then he was working with Tom Mullica doing the Red Skelton tribute and everything back then. The point is, he was saying if you have a theater, you need to keep that busy morning, noon, and night, because if you just have the one show, you're having to compete with everyone else who has that one show at night. But they may come to your place for breakfast, or they may come to your place for lunch or something. So he was trying to keep the place busy. So you just have the one show here, is that right?
Well, there's a comedian, a good friend of mine, Steve Morris, which I met 18 years ago on cruise ships as well. But he wanted to take a break from doing that, and he's doing an afternoon show.
Okay.
Early, like
1 o'clock.
Lunch show. I think it's 12:30, and then so he does his afternoon show with his crowd, and then I think there's an hour between where we clean up, and then we.
That's
do
a
our
completely
stuff.
different show, obviously. And so I would imagine some people could stick around, and they're going to say,
And
hey,
we do. We try to cross promote where you
good
can take
idea.
your ticket to come and see ours for a discount
Yeah,
or
good
vice
discount,
versa.
sure. Yeah.
And then if you saw the slideshow on the pre-show thing, is he's advertised in there too to
Which, by the way, I think is a good idea as far as many of the things you've got on the slideshow to keep people interactive and trying to play the guessing games and different kinds of things that are magic trivia that people can learn a little bit.
I always
about
like that at the movie theaters. You got some stuff to keep you entertained with the questions and
Yeah.
quizzes and that. So we try to do a little variety there.
I remember the Blue Man Group did that in Vegas, and Amazing Jonathan had something kind of like that. He had a camera on some people, so he would have their faces, and you never knew who was going to be on. Then he'd have a little funny tagline underneath that person.
Funny.
The next person that you'll see in jail or whatever. I don't know, but that was kind of funny. Well, before I forget it, by the way, Garry, we were talking before we started recording this podcast about you having a particular part of your show that was something that looked like it was something from Jeff McBride's, and you said you had already talked with Jeff and got his approval on that. You can explain, first of all, what the bit is and how it came about?
Well, the part that I do in the show that is part of a routine of Jeff McBride is taking the metal cannon, hitting it with a stick and making it ring. The bell.
Like his Miser Dream thing.
Exactly.
Like a bell,
And I've always enjoyed getting volunteers different ways, and that's one that I enjoy the most because it's funny, it's solid, and but it makes the kid a hero to get the kid up on stage. But it's funny, you get people like that say it's like, oh, that's so and so's. It's like, yeah, and I spend good money to have the rights to do stuff like that, and that one was very pricey, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, I think it's important that we recognize those things that are owned by other people. That's their babies. They've worked on. They finally honed that, and I'm glad you're respecting that from the standpoint of not saying, hey, I'll use it. You couldn't anyhow. I mean, it would get back to when you're doing a big show like this, things are going to get back to somebody saying, hey, you've taken someone's line. Similarly, I would think like with comedians, when you're going to have someone's line you've taken, they say, well, I've heard that someplace before,
And I've spent a lot of money on jokes and stuff or routines from people that I look up to and say, hey, is there anything I can do differently? And I pay people for that. So
Yeah. No, I think that's very important that we do recognize, appreciate, and pay them for their original ideas. But you're not doing the Miser's Dream, not doing the whole. You just use the coin pail basically to get the volunteer on stage.
All I do is spend a lot of money to tap it
To ring that
and
bell.
to ring that bell, right? Exactly. So, but it's a solid piece, and I loved it. So
Yeah. Now, had you seen Jeff do that live or on TV?
I've worked with Jeff many times doing different conventions and stuff. So yeah, worked with him, and that thing's been around forever.
Did you ever work with him in Vegas?
Not Vegas, just a lot of magic conventions in Colorado and Texas and different stuff. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, because he was at the Rocky Mountain Convention. I never went to that, but I always heard it was a good convention. And they had placemats for dinner with the pictures of the performers on there. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yep, it sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they have your picture on there?
Maybe. It's been so long ago. I do remember that though, but I don't remember.
You don't collect a lot of stuff like that?
I get I've got a large collection of stuff over the years, newspaper articles and everything else. So, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Surely most of us always, have promo material, all your posters you've had over the years.
Yeah, I mean, I try to sell as many of them as I can. Posters went from promoting the show to the next year as part of the concession stand, so trying to move them. So
at some point, because you change your look, do you then get rid of the posters and then have all new posters the next year for the new show? Particularly like when you're going to be branded when you're going to be having something new, like you have been the winner of the best new show for 2020. In Branson, as well as the best dinner show for 2020, which is saying a lot. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So you have to change your promotional material and posters to include that kind of stuff.
And we do. And then, if I don't know if you saw any of the kids leaving, but Janine, if we got the brother up there, doing something on the show. The other kids that are leaving, we quickly sign and hand everybody a poster. So all the kids usually get a poster that weren't part of the show, just to make them feel like they were a part of the show.
Right. Now in concessions, there are things I noticed you had, like Robot, which that's kind of a cool idea to have the tie-in because they saw the big one on stage, and then you have that sort of things for sale. But are some other things that, like, you give out posters to the kids then?
Yeah. We they say they're for sale, but we do. We just, every time like I said, we see three kids that didn't make it on stage, then we quickly give them all a poster.
That's a great thing because in Branson, it's unlike Las Vegas, where people go to Vegas, have a lot of money. This is kind of a different culture here, I would say, of people, and some people can't afford that. And it's great that you would recognize and give these things to some kids because that's going to be a memory they're going to put on their wall, and that's going to be next to their rock band or their famous people also. So,
well, it's just like the kid that actually got up there with the bucket. I mean, I think you guys talked to him. They sat close to you, but that was his second time coming, and he actually walked out this time with a magic kit and a deck of cards. So so he was really bitten by that magic bug. So
yeah. Well, that's great. That's a great show. I'd highly recommend that for anybody who's going to be coming to Branson. So, as we start to wrap up, are there any words of advice that you can also give to people? We were talking about earlier, as far as things have changed, obviously, in Vegas, and being an illusionist. What would you say to someone who really is enamored by being an illusionist and doing the big stuff, to not be discouraged and just try to do as much as you can, and maybe work in theme parks? Is kind of what we've been saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
words in your mouth.
I mean, I think theme parks is a really good place to do it because you are doing like 4 or 5 shows a day, and it just, I think more you do the show, you're figuring out what was wrong or what works and what the audience is responding to. So you definitely got to find that type of job. And if you're going to do the big stuff, you really, besides the expense of owning them or buying them or having them built, but is just, you got the transportation. You got to look at all the things that go with it. It's trooping them from one point A to point B, and then also store them when you're not working. I mean, people are like, oh, my garage is full, where do I park my car? Or then it's like, some people, I've seen some illusions that they rent a truck all the time. And I'm thinking, I'd rather own the trailer and own the car. I mean, because you write that off on your taxes, but it's like, I'd rather own it instead, because after I pay off a car for it in a couple of years, it's kind of like, guess what? It lasts for 20 years. I never had to rent a thing. So I don't know what.
That's right.
So you really just got to I think, be smart on the business side of it too. So
it's, again, like owning a house versus renting something, but you have to get enough money, first of all, till you get to the point where you can actually do that.
Exactly.
Another 32 payments, this zigzag's going to be mine, so kind of a thing. So, again, to wrap up, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Words. I always like to ask, what is it that is your phrase? What is your mantra that you live by? What's your magic word or words?
Well, Escape Reality, name of our show, but
Escape Reality.
I don't know. It's changed over the years, but I think
it would. I think, and that's, we've known each other for a long time, and you have different priorities now than you had even 5 years ago, certainly. So, whatever your magic word now would be different. Also, currently?
I think Escape Reality, just because it's just because the times of people's, especially with all the craziness people going through, but it's just you got to step away to just enjoy life and experience the fun things. And that's like, it goes back to me being an older dad. I didn't want to miss out on my daughter, and
that's great.
So I'm enjoying my life extremely immensely with having a kid and just all the seeing the world through her eyes. And then it goes back to like I said, I was burnt out on cruise ships, but Janine loved it and we met. It was kind of like it was new to me again, because I knew when we went to certain ports, I knew what we should go do, or stuff I always wanted to do, but I didn't want to do it by myself, that we went and did it, so that was nice. So now we're seeing it, through her little eyes. So
that is great. Yeah. Because you get to see something all the way through a child's eyes. Then again, so it's new to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of figure out what's important and escape reality. I like that. I like that a lot. Garry, thank you very much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Great.
Thanks for coming out.
Good reconnecting after all these years.
Definitely.
Too. And thanks a lot for doing a good show and keeping magic alive here in Branson.
My pleasure.
Is great.
Come out and see it.
So, recommend. And if people want to get more information, where can they go over to your website, by the way?
Just CarsonEntertainment.com, and there's tons of information on there, and just drop me a message and let me know you're coming out. So.
Yeah, to Branson, Missouri. There you go. So for the Magic Word Podcast, that was Garry Carson. This is Scotty out. Well, that was fun. Thank you very much again, Garry, for your time and your words and your friendship. Always good to catch up with old friends, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time afterwards to chat with us and tell us a little bit about your history and give some of good advice also to others who might want to follow in your footsteps and become an illusionist and entertain the masses. So thanks again, Garry. That was great. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone again for tuning in to this week's episode. And let me mention next week, by the way, I will be attending the Collectors Expo in Las Vegas. Now, that convention actually begins on Friday morning. I mean, actually Thursday is when we're going to be having registration and everything, and I'm probably not going to be posting anything until Saturday after the first full day's activities on Friday. So do not expect an episode at our regularly appointed time, which will be on Thursday at 9 a.m. Instead, it will be sometime a little bit later after we actually have some content from the convention. But we're going to be having some daily reports, at least 2 days of daily reports. The first day, most of us, everyone's going to be going to the David Copperfield Museum and having some personally guided tour of the museum. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. I don't know how many pictures, if any, we'll be able to take inside there, but nevertheless, we will give you as much information as we can on that and some other things that are happening during the convention with those daily convention reports. But again, don't expect this to come out at the regular time on Thursday, August 19th. It will probably be more like Saturday the 21st or sometime after midnight after the 20th, which will still be on the 21st, I guess, when we've actually got some content to upload over there. But it will be something I know you'll want to hear. This is a limited convention, very small, because of the number of people that David wants to take through the exhibit. And also just kind of a niche group within a niche group. It's the collectors of magic. So anyhow, just wanted to let you know what to expect next week. And also you can keep up with what's going to be going on, like that piece of information, by subscribing to our pod letter. If you'll just go to themagicwordpodcast.com, there you'll see perhaps a pop-up that will come up on your screen that you can then complete and subscribe to the pod letter, or you can go where it says subscribe on one of the tabs over to the side there as well. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and every once in a while, you just need to step back, take a breath, and enjoy life and escape reality. This is Scotty out.